Today our goal is ask us anything, guys. We had some people submit questions in advance, so we do have several questions that we'll be talking through today. But I definitely want to start it with those who are present here in the room. And I know we have a couple of people that arrived after we got started. And I always encourage people to put yourself on camera if possible. And I know we have Mariah down there, and I know the other one says development, but I'm not sure. I can't quite see who that might be. Would you mind unmuting and just saying hello, the one that says development, so we know who's with us today?
Yes, hi, I'm Christy Harrington. I work at the Dallam Conservatory.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. It's so great to have you with us. And now we know that your microphone works, so you can put yourself back on mute. That's wonderful. But as we go through this, I would absolutely love to encourage people to A, use that chat feature, and B, raise their hand and unmute to be able to ask questions. So, for the group that is with us presently, does anyone have a pressing question that would like to go first? I know it's a little scary to go first sometimes. So, again, totally understand if you want to let me start with some of the questions that have already been submitted, but I'm just talking here a little bit more. Anybody? Anybody? No one wants to go first? Okay. I'm going to pose this question to Jenna. Jenna, when in a capital campaign, the silent phase, what can we expect to be the average decrease in annual fund for for one fiscal year across grants, individuals, and corporate giving?
I love this question. Thank you, Marty. I actually don't like to go into a campaign anticipating or really accepting loss at any point, right? That's not why we go into campaign. I also have worked in environments where pausing our efforts or even putting hold on our annual fund activity was not an option. And I think for most small and mid-sized nonprofits, that's the reality. We have to raise X number of dollars each year to be able to do what we do as an organization. And so we need to really identify those donors that are heroically supporting your annual fund. And you need to be having significant, meaningful, transparent conversations with those annual fund leaders before you actually go into your campaign. You need to be setting them up to be the hero so that your development team can split focus, right? Assuming you have a team, you're going to want to balance the engagement with your annual fund leaders, with your folks that really want to build a building or put their name on something tangible. You kind of have to segment your portfolio even as you're heading into a campaign. And the best way to approach it, in my opinion, is to ask those heroic annual fund donors, can we count on you to continue to keep this stable for us while we explore this new adventure? We'd love for you to come along for that conversation too. If these are folks that are giving you, five, six-figure gifts every year to your annual fund, which I have experienced, you cannot let them walk away or get distracted by a growth opportunity for your organization. You need that stability. You also could ask them for a and gift where they might be helping name something or move forward an endowment, but you got to keep that annual fund stable. So start with your annual fund and make sure you have that balance and commitment before you go do the other sexy stuff that might come along with your campaign.
Thank you so much, Jenna. I'm going to keep reading questions that have already been submitted, but drop your questions in the chat and I will address them as they come up. I know as we get warmed up, your questions will be coming. This next question is for Michaela. Michaela, how do we prioritize our prospect pool when we have limited staff capacity? I'm sure nobody here has that issue. You all have all the time in the world, right?
I wish, Marty. I think one of the simplest ways to look at your portfolio is who is ready for an ask? Who is actually looking to have that conversation with you? Start there. Take a look and think through, do I know what they care about or what the right amount would be? Set those meetings first. And then take a look at those that might need one more meeting with you to really clarify any questions they have about where you're headed. You, as the gift officer, trying to determine what's the right ask amount for them, like what do they really want to get out of this? That can be your sort of B tier. And then always sprinkle in. I know Jake is a huge advocate of this, and I love this technique. Take some time and block it every week for that other group of donors so that you're like trying to set that initial meeting with them. You've still got that plan, but it's not necessarily your top priority for that week. If you can set an internal goal of, can I meet with two, maybe three people this week? That's success, and really focus on who's ready to engage at a deeper level.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela. And Meredith, thank you for going first in the chat there. Really appreciate your question. So you can probably see it on the screen, but I'll read it. How do you cultivate donors without making interactions feel transactional? How do you prevent them from feeling used and make them feel authentically special, right? Great question. We talk a lot. I'll go ahead and start on this, and then anybody can feel free to chime in. We talk a lot about the importance of relational fundraising, right? We want this to be the long game. We want to authentically connect with our people. I think a great place to start is by asking them questions about themselves and learning what's important to them. You know, a question like, why are you interested in this organization? What have you appreciated about donating to other organizations? Getting that conversation going to truly hear them and what's important to them is a really great place to start. And focusing, being donor centric, focusing on them and the relationship and sort of being their advocate to help them find something that makes sense and connects with what's important to them and their values, and aligning that with what you're doing, versus going into a call and saying, hey, we are this great organization, and here's all the things that we're doing, and you should be excited to know about them, right? Listening and taking the time to understand who they are, and then aligning your story and your message with what matters to them. Obviously, there's a whole lot more to that. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Well,
Marty, I
yeah.
think your response was just perfect. And I wanted to like pull on a little piece that you mentioned about like asking questions. I think in order to build an authentic relationship, one of the best things we can do after someone's contributed is ask for their thoughts and feedback and reactions to what they're seeing. You learn a lot about what they care about, and you also learn what you should be reporting out on. So you touched that, and I was just like, oh, let's go a little
Love
bit
that
further there.
expansion. Yeah, thank you, Michaela. Meredith, does that help? Do you have any other follow-up questions? Again, happy to engage in a little conversation if you have something specific and you want to speak.
Yes, no, that was great. Thank you guys so much for answering. Um, I think when I thought of the question, I just think of the instances where one might reach out to a donor and they might think, "Oh, I know why they're reaching out to me." You know? So that's kind of what, fundraisers would want to prevent, and just want them to actually feel like we do want a relationship, and not, you know, we only want to reach out because we want your money.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you
thank
said
you.
something else that occurred to me is, when anytime you're reaching out to someone, obviously having questions that you're going to ask them, but having something new to share with them is important as well, right? So that you really truly are excited about sharing new information. And if we do a good job of stewardship and reaching out, not just when we want to ask them for a gift, but
Hmm.
reaching out to them to share exciting updates and to say thank you, so that they can say, wow, every time Meredith calls, I'm so like overwhelmed by the impact that I'm helping make possible, that of course when she makes an ask of me again, I'm going to want to do whatever I can to support that. So I think just if we think about our day-to-day relationships, right? Nobody wants a friend that just talks at them. They want
Hmm.
someone who engages them and makes them feel special and appreciated. So I think just thinking about our own relationships and what makes them ticks is a great place to start. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing and thank you for
I
going down
I
that
will just add, we
path.
have to sort of chuckle at the fact that we quite literally build matrices and strategy and specific schedules for cultivation. So like internally, we at least need to chuckle that yes, we want it to be genuine relationship, but we are also like over the top planning for the general relationship, right? And so that's not real. I don't sit around and like map out a calendar of how I'm going to engage with my best friend. I'm going to text her between chaos in my life, and hope that she can text me back within a reasonable period of time. So I think we have to acknowledge the surreal world that we live in. And cultivation moves at the speed of the donor, right? So everything is about meeting them where they are, finding where they want to spend more time or more energy, and then making it really easy for them to engage in that way. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I love it. I'm going to move on to Rochelle's question. Thanks for your question, Rochelle. How do you breathe new life into a capital campaign that launched with a goal that was lower than what was truly needed? A ribbon cutting has occurred, but we still have $1 million to raise. Oh boy, that is a fun one. Anyone that wants to take a stab?
I would
Jake?
like to. We actually had a client have this exact situation 2 weeks ago. So this was is on the mind because we had to deal with this exact problem. So same kind of thing where they had an initial fundraising goal and the construction cost or the total investment cost was actually a little bit outside of the original goal. And the plan initially, when we set it way back when, was to do like a new campaign or a second campaign to finish the construction and build out an additional second floor space and do some extra add-ons later so that we could finish the campaign. As they kind of got into it, they realized, oh, actually, it's going to be a lot more cost effective just to do the whole thing at once. We're actually going to spend significantly more money and it's going to take way longer and it's going to be pretty disruptive to the people that we serve to wait. So we need to move the campaign goalpost. It was, a decent amount of money as well. I know if you're in the multiples of millions and you're like, man, we've been in this campaign forever. We've already had the ribbon cutting, like people are already aware. So what we did was had a set of very targeted conversations with our best supporters. We went and talked confidentially to our top like 20 people, both in terms of gift size, but not just necessarily our biggest ones, but also people who just been with us for a while, or they're good advocates, or they're longtime board members, like the people who are your best people, and kind of sat them down and asked their opinion, saying, "Look, we have this opportunity to expand the goal. It's going to be another, in this case, million or whatever. And as a result of that, we'll be able to do the following. And this is why we think it's good. We're trying to be good stewards of the money that you're giving us. We're going to save a lot of money by doing it this way. The way that we serve the people that we serve is significantly improved. But we do need to move the goalpost. This was the plan all along, but we'd like to kind of put this as an extension. What do you think?" And we just kind of got the opinions of the top 20 people and also asked them like, "Hey, if we were to do this, would y'all consider expanding your gift or doing another gift toward this?" And a lot of them said, "Yes, we trust y'all and glad to see that we're doing some sort of an expansion." A lot of them said, "We will give the same amount again." They almost like doubled their gift. A lot of them said, "We can't give the same amount again, but we can give a little more." And a lot of them said, "We can't give any more. We're still paying on our pledge." And that was okay. So you got a good chunk from that. The other thing is we kind of circle back with them. And we're like, "Hey, who within y'all's network do you feel like we haven't engaged that we really should be talking to? Who'd be really excited about this project?" And we got a decent list of names that they're like, "Oh, actually, we haven't talked to so and so and so and so." And they brought that list of names to their board meeting this past week, and it was really successful. The board got really excited. They're like, "Oh, there's all these people, these businesses, these foundations that we haven't engaged, or we asked them years ago, and we got kind of a soft no, like the timing wasn't right. We're going to go back to those folks." So they used the people who were already bought in and excited both for additional funding, and they were fine with it because they sat them down first and say, "We're not going to ask you yet, but we want to get your opinion about how we move forward on this." And then they also use that to find kind of an additional group of people. And doing that math, it's like, oh, actually, we should be fine hitting this goal. And the board did vote to push it forward and expand the goal officially this week. So very exciting. And it looks like they're going to be successful, but they have another now year plus to raise what they have to raise, and they're back in it. But no one's upset. That's the main thing. Like it was less about are we doing this or not doing this. It was more about are we making sure that we're connecting with our key stakeholders first and getting their opinion first, and then that way it feels like a collective decision, a democratic vote, as opposed to like the organization coming in and saying, well, retroactively we're going to do it this way now. Like they involved their best people in the decision making process. But I'd love to hear the perspective of any other team members who have experience or worked on that project with me.
Well, and if I could just piggyback on what you had to say. So the original campaign was 1.7
Sure.
million. And so for that part, the original campaign, the board committed 500,000, a
Wow.
$500,000 match. So which we met. We've met the
Congrats.
1.7.
That's fantastic.
We have gone back to the board um, because what wasn't included in the original goal and the budget were things like furniture for the building, sort
Mm.
of that operational, sort of that long term. Now we need to use it. What does it look like? The specialized signage for donor recognition, all of that. So it's the additional million. We did go back to the board and they very generously agreed to do another match. So
Awesome.
we're really looking at 500,000. But at the same time, where there was just a big push and there was a buzz about it, right? Now, because of the ribbon cutting, and everybody thinks that we're up and running, which, some of the program is, but it's sort of how do we, and I don't know if something, a reception or, something to get people excited again and have it at the building and just trying to think of
Typically,
what's going to grow excitement and
yeah, the
enthusiasm.
excitement piece is such an important point to make because like you want to build on momentum or you want to feel like you have momentum. Almost always we have found that the individual conversations, the one-on-one is going to get you better traction than oh we got to throw it like even if it's a small gathering. Like a cultivation event is great. I'm not saying not to do that. Of course, we know that those are successful. But if you can sit down with your best people one at a time, or even donors who turned you down or gave you kind of a go away gift in the first million or wasn't the right fit to match the first 500, and say like, hey, great news. Like the reframe is like, this is exciting. We have this incredible opportunity. Originally, we were going to do this, but because we've been so successful with this first million, we jumped to this first million. We actually think we can do 2.7. And what that allows the organization to do is serve our population in these ways. We're so over the moon about this. Can I tell you a little bit about it? And then that's how you get the call set up. And then you sit down with these people over coffee at their office, at your office, at their home, or whatever, and say, here's what we're intending to do and why. Like we intend to be good stewards, but those individual conversations are going to resonate probably way more, especially because you have such a really strong board match. That's a very unusual. I would imagine other people who are watching this are going, I wish my board would do 500,000 towards
Right.
1.7. Yeah, you got to take advantage of that huge swing that you got there. Who else has thoughts on this? I know that there's other team members who might want to weigh in.
Well, I mean, this is a little tiny little thing, Rochelle, but I think that you have such an opportunity to really start sharing stories and connecting, like truly, like I know it's not super fun and sexy to talk about, like, well, no, we actually, or the planning maybe wasn't what we thought it was, and oops, we still need furniture to make this possible. But it's more about like this is now a reality, and here are the really impact stories and connecting with people in that way, and really encouraging that base to like invite their friends and to share why it's important to them and to me that's the connection and the excitement that Jake's talking about. That's what I would like focus on if it were me, because I can sense that hesitation of like oops, like it's gonna like how do I make it not sound like we didn't plan properly and now there's this additional thing and they'll be like, well, you should have thought of that before, don't come back to me now, right? Like that's sort of I think the insecurity that I would have in that space. But if it's like, look, it's not about what we need in this, it's about all these stories of these people. So I don't know if that helps as well, just to kind of look at it in that space. Remember the why.
It does. And we have a member of our board that we have a dementia education program that is housed in the dementia center that is named for one of our board members' wives, and he is just an extension of our marketing and philanthropy. He is out there always promoting, but there's a little donor fatigue from it, because he has been out there and it's sort of his circle. But he has a beautiful story, and it's been told several times. So maybe we do need to find another angle to the program, and really start looking at that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And
Yeah.
repackaging his story, Rochelle, for other audiences as well, to kind of leverage his excitement about your program and the funding he's been able to offer. Introducing that story to some new networks is another great way to say, we have a few naming opportunities remaining, kind of drive that fear of missing out, right?
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate all the suggestions.
Absolutely. Let's see, Christy. We have a volunteer group from the C-suite of True Community Credit Union coming out for our Community Impact Day. What can we do to leverage that event in our silent phase of a capital campaign? I would love to ask you to unmute and let's talk a little bit about this. First, I'll say we have to remember that just because we're in I'll call it quiet because silent is probably not accurate, and we use that term, but we're in that quiet doesn't mean we can't shout it from the rooftop still in our circles. It just means that we are building it with our true inner network, right? So I would argue that these people, if they're not already, they have an opportunity to be sort of in our inner network. So I think you're absolutely right to recognize that this is an opportunity to communicate. But tell us a little bit more about this, and let's see if anyone wants to weigh in and offer some suggestions.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm new on the development team. I've been here for about 2 months, so I'm still getting up to date on all the history of donors and, finding out who our key people are. Plus, a lot of our top donors are heavily impacted by the tariffs currently, and so we're getting a lot of kind of pushback on that. And so last year and this year, donations have been a little bit harder, but we've been able to maintain, but we're having to like really branch out to new. So it's kind of become a little bit of a balancing act with maintaining and then also trying to put feelers out and reach out with the capital campaign, which I'm just starting on. So I haven't actually reached out to anyone. I'm just kind of getting caught up on what has already been done. So I'm still in that phase of learning.
That's amazing. Do you mind sharing with us just, a little bit about what the actual capital campaign is, like what your case is?
Well, we want to build a nature center. So we have a preschool and we currently have 2 classrooms, and it's a nature preschool with outdoor play and education. So we're really focused on outdoor education for youth. And so our preschool's considered like one of the top in our area. And so we always have a waiting list. It's a high demand to get in. And so we'd like to incorporate with the Nature Center and a little bit of a Welcome Center building, 2 new classrooms, so that we could really expand, maybe double our preschool size. We also do an outdoor summer camp. And so we're just limited by capacity because we have 300 acres, but we have to have proper space in our facility to house individuals if there's severe weather or something. So our numbers are always capped by our physical space. And so the building needs to happen. But so the capital campaign is to raise funds to build a new building.
Awesome. So, do the volunteers from the C-suite of the True Community Credit Union know about the project at this point, or is it going to be completely new to them?
Um, I think there are new donors, so it would be completely new.
So, what you just told us and sharing that with them sounds
Yeah,
great. And maybe
yeah.
getting their thoughts and their advice on how you can be successful and who
Hmm.
they know is a great place to start. I think kind of going back and asking people for advice on when you're in that quiet phase, especially. Is really, really the best way to engage them and them to feel like now they're invested in the success, right? Who wants to, Jenna, looks like you're excited.
I, I
Yeah.
am excited. We have one of these outdoor nursery programs near like about an hour from where we live, and I'm fascinated by it. So I have lots of questions. I would encourage you to play the new girl card. You don't get to do it for long, but it is going to work to your benefit because you get to say, now you guys may know about this work that we're doing, but I want to be sure and tell you the impact of this future space, right? I want to tell you about the growth we're going to experience once we have blah. And I encourage you to ask of the C suite how many of them have school age children or grandchildren in the area, talking up the benefits of your program. That's going to tell you like who are the people in this room that understand the need for early childhood education, for unique approaches to education, right? That's going to tell you immediately who is an advocate already
Hmm.
in this room and who needs to know more about what we're doing. I we just did this with another client. They hosted an event. We knew like the sponsors that were getting them to the event. I did not know all of the attendees. And so we made considerable efforts before, during, and after the event to capture that contact info. And now we've set up a series of follow up emails, specifically thanking them for engaging in this event with our organization. We are not making an ask until about 90 days after the event. And it is specifically going to be tied to, hey, you came and did this thing. Now, do you want to deepen that relationship? But we are being very intentional about some communication and really it's stewardship, stewarding them for just coming out and getting to know us
Hmm.
before we make any formal kind of next step with those contacts. So ask questions and figure out who they are and then try to get their contact info. That's my most.
And I will argue too, thank you so much, Jenna. It sounds like what you said is that like the organization, True Community Credit Union, has made a gift, but these are all individuals as well. I think that we don't want to overlook the fact that if they're taking the time as an individual, we can connect with them as an individual relationship as well, and that is a good opportunity. So, cultivating and stewarding all at the same time is a really great strategy. And thank you for weighing in, Jenna. Um, any additional follow-up questions to that, or
Marty,
anything
I
else?
don't have a
Yeah.
question, but the whole time you're sharing this story, Christy, I'm thinking at the very end being incredibly clear, especially with a volunteer group where many this might be their first interaction with you. Outline exactly how they can stay connected with you and learn more. Is it a you know, membership opportunity? Is it a open to the community on the first Friday situation? I'm not quite sure, but invite them back into the space.
Hmm. Yeah, we have an event August 8th that's our give back to the community, so that would probably be the invitation.
Perfect. Thank you. I love it. Y'all had some really great questions. We are getting close to the end of our time. I want to pose one final question to Jake. If I only have 10 hours per week to dedicate to fundraising, how should I spend them?
Oh man. This could be a whole dissertation, but I'll give you the quick version. So, I have recently been reading a book on the theory of constraints. This is the kind of nerdy stuff that I'm into, but it's fascinating and I think it applies here. So, bear with me. So, the whole idea is that there is usually one bottleneck to improving a something. It comes from the idea of a factory. Like, if a factory has 10 steps to get something made, step 4 is the thing that's most complex or takes the longest, or you have the fewest machines working on that. So, like, the factory output is entirely dependent on that one step being improved. So, when you're looking to improve with limited resources, you just pick one thing and you improve that one thing to the max. And then that will be a bigger downstream effect than trying to dial in everything or trying to make improvements across the board. So, you just focus on one thing. When your constraint is time, and for most fundraising shops, for most nonprofits, that is the case. There is a very tiny percentage of charities that have big fundraising staffs. This is like the top 1 or 2%. And then there's another 5% that has like one full-time fundraising staff. And then you get down into like 10% and above, and you go to almost like half-time fractional or even zero. So most people have this like constraint problem. You're like, okay, well, if we're going to go for this short amount of time and we still have these needs and we still have this mission we're trying to apply to, it's just about getting as many dollars as possible in those 10 hours per week. So that is what we always try to achieve, is like there's 40 hours or perhaps 80 hours of fundraising work that we could be doing. And it is deceiving because it all does make money in most cases. And you can say, yeah, like I spent time doing this event or applying for these grant cycles, or we did all these mailers, or I spent time on social media. There's all these things you can do. They're not going to bring in money. So you get this kind of false sense of progress, but you also get like, oh gosh, well, I know I need to do these other things. And it feels like you're totally time constrained. So we just say instead, especially when you're low and have 10 hours or less, nix as much as you can and focus on just the top revenue generating activity and working your way down. We have good data to support that this is major gifts. We know that the top revenue generating activity is talking to people one on one and focusing on those who can give. If a major gift for your organization might be 10,000, it might be 50, it might be 100, but for those people who could give at that level. And if you think same kind of thing, you can reapply the theory of constraints to that as well, saying, well, it is the case either that I have a bunch of people and I can't ask them for money because I don't have a good reason, or it might be the case that I don't have a bunch of people and that's my problem. I can't get to the people. Or it might be the case that like I can get to these people, but they're not necessarily interested in my charity who don't have the right project. So you can identify the one constraint. For most people, it's we need to identify folks who could give at that level. So then you tackle that singular problem. I'm going to spend every one of those 10 hours every single week trying to generate potential people that I can sit down with. If that's the case, I'm going to go through my Rolodex of people that I have connectivity to. I'm going to go into my database and see what opportunities I can find there. I'm going to have conversations with all of my organization leadership, see who they have connectivity and can reference me to. I'm going to talk to each of my board members and volunteers to see if they have anyone in their Rolodex that I can connect to. And I just want to generate names that I can sit down and begin the conversation with. And if that's your constraint, you work on that. And you just keep going down the list until you have that top pipeline, which is for most organizations, major gifts. And for a well-oiled fundraising shop, anywhere from like 80 to 95% of your revenue is going to come from major gifts. If that's not the case, that's good news actually, because it means you have a lot of ceiling left. You have a lot of potential in the major gifts area, and you can focus on that. So you start at the top of your major gifts pipeline and you work your way down until you hit a roadblock and you say, that's what I'm working on. I found my one constraint. The theory of constraint says I have one thing that's blocking my major gifts. That's what all 10 hours are going to be spent on until it gets fixed. And then I move on to the next thing. And you repeat that over the course of several weeks, and you'll be shocked at how quickly you can get into $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month in gift revenue. So that's a very oversimplification. That's the 3-minute version. Anything to add to that, Marty?
No, thank you so much, Jake. I think that is a wonderful way to end, is sometimes we sort of overcomplicate things because there's so much coming at us. So I think that was just a really nice way to boil it down and focus on the activities that are going to bring the greatest ROI on a daily basis and tackle those first, right? Wonderful to have you all with us today. Thank you so much for your questions. I hope everyone had some questions answered, and probably it may have created additional questions in your mind. If you would like to chat with us about how we can help more in the future, feel free to scan that QR code. We'd love to talk with you if you're not already working with us.